There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
So our first speaker series guest we have today is Natalie Abrahamian. Say it for me, Natalie.
You got it right. That's perfect.
Abrahamian. Okay, great. So she is a resident physician of internal medicine at UC Riverside School of Medicine. She is a former MSG alum at USC, and she actually was the vice president and alumni coordinator of SGA in her years. So she just recently completed her residency at UC Riverside, and I learned that she enjoys traveling and cheese. So I'm going to pass it to you, Natalie, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then let me know when you want me to share my screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Giovanna. It's a pleasure to meet everybody. I know it's a little tougher behind the screen, but hopefully I could meet you all in person one day too. So like Giovanna mentioned, I'm an MD in internal medicine. I thankfully had such a great experience with the program there at USC for both my bachelor's degrees as well as my master's degree. I graduated in 2011. And after that, I decided to take a year to do some research and independent traveling, and then I pursued medical school. I can tell you a little bit about my experience and advice and tips as you all move on to your next chapters. And I'm hoping that these can help you in the future because some of them are pearls that nobody ever taught me. So I hope that they'll be relatable. Before we start, if you don't mind me asking, whoever we have joining us today, do you want to share what career path you have in mind that you think you would be interested in?
Yeah, I can go first. So hi, my name's Danielle. Sorry, my camera's off right now.
Okay.
It's really nice to meet you. So for me, this is my first year at SC. So this is my first year as a graduate student, and I'm just hoping to potentially get my PhD or even get an MD. Right now, I'm not completely decided because I do like research, but I'm not making any decisions right now.
That's wonderful. Those are great goals to have. And I think that USC is the perfect foundation to start, regardless of which route you decide to take, okay?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
I can go. I currently am in my last semester of undergrad, and I'm looking to join the medical gerontology master's program starting January, and then after that, applying to dental school. So those are my plans so far.
Perfect. I think those are great plans, and I think that this information is going to help you out as well, okay? I know that I mentioned I followed the MD route, but I have a DDS friends that use the same advice, so it'll help you.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Okay, perfect. Let's get started with our presentation.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay.
Thanks, Giovanna.
I'm going to go right here. There we go. Is that good? Should we go maybe?
That works. Do you want to do the slideshow?
Okay, let's see. That cool?
That's perfect. I can let you know when to switch over as well. Okay. So we did the introduction. So essentially today we're going to cover what kind of future that you have in your mind that's customized to your unique self. So you don't want to be like everybody else. You want to stand out so that you can have a better chance of getting to the career you want. Okay. And then I'm representing USC and UCR down there. My personal trajectory. So I mentioned that I actually had a dual bachelor's degree at USC, and I was taking pre-medicine courses at the same time. Graduated in 2010, and I got my master's degree. We just, I wish we had that master's in medical sciences back then. We didn't at that time, but I pursued the master's of science in gerontology, which was equally as great. At the same time, I also taught for the MCAT. So that's something important to consider. If you do have a little bit of extra time during your master's year, try doing something else on the side that can help boost your application. That worked for me because my boss I actually was in his MCAT class and he liked me a lot. And so he wanted me as a teacher there for organic chemistry. So it worked out. Other research projects on the side. So I've done some with USC and I've also done some independently. I've done some in different countries. Cast a wide net. As long as you have an interest, pursue it. And we'll talk more about that. And then I went to medical school at St. George's University in Grenada. I had a really great experience there. And then I moved to New York City. I did medicine there for a little bit, for a year. And I matched with residency at UC Riverside, and I just graduated like 2-3 weeks ago. So it's been an exciting trajectory for me. Right now I'm looking for a job, and I'm likely going to sign for one soon. So it could be you in a matter of a few years. Okay. So to start thanks Danielle. So for our next slide. Let's see, we're gonna talk about, I believe it's research. Yeah. So when I was at USC, I had a really good research experience. I worked with Dr. Hello? Oh, sorry, I thought someone said something. I worked with Dr. Mara Mather. So I don't know if she's still there, but we were doing memory projects and how basically older adults' memory gets affected depending on positive or negative emotions. And I had such a strong interest in it. I told her that right off the bat. If you have something that you're passionate about, like, it could be dementia, it could be, preventing poverty in the aging population, preventing ageism, whatever you think sounds like you would want on your resume one day, talk to a faculty member and say, do you know somebody who might be interested in this? Even if they're not, they can help guide you to somebody who may be so invested in it and would love to have you on board. Also, they want to hear you be realistic. So if you go up to them and say, oh, I'm just in this so I can get published, that's all I need, my program wants that, they're just gonna see that you have one thing in mind. But if you're gonna be willing to invest your full time and trial and error, sometimes you're not gonna have successes, then that's going to stand out a little more because they're going to see that you're there for more than just a publication. Okay. Do you hear me, by the way, right now? It's okay. It's clear. Okay, perfect. And also learning from previous studies. So you might have multiple years with one faculty advisor and you may be doing a few studies. So if you made a mistake for one study, try to realize what you can do to make the next one better. Your yield will be better, your effect size, your power, everything will improve, and that will look good to your faculty, and they might write you a good letter of recommendation based on your observations. So think about all these things going into research, okay? And we'll have time for questions in the end if you have questions. So some topics about what works and what doesn't. So I talked about trial and error. This is inevitable, guys. So not only with research, but anything, I'm sure you have a lot of colleagues there. It's extremely competitive in any of these fields. And some people may say, this is the right thing to do. This is the right way to get there. It's the only way. It might work for them, might not work for you. It might work for you, might not work for them. That is something that I learned like throughout these 9 years. If you think something seems to be working for you, stick to it. the person next to you might say something and it's customized to them, okay? I can give you an example. For example, I had a lot of friends that they thought that MPH, Masters in Public Health, was the coolest thing that's going to be your segue into medical school. Everyone was doing it, like around me. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm interested in public health, but if everybody's doing it, how am I going to stand out? Like, you want to make yourself be a unique candidate. So I did a master's in gerontology, and everybody, I swear to you, everyone during my interviews, both for medical school and residency, brought that up and was amazed that I was willing to be invested in the older adult population. Because truly in the US, it's not something that people want to be invested in. So it makes you stand out, okay? Another important thing is to avoid burnout and spreading your plate too thin. When I was an undergrad and a grad student, all the associations at USC, I know they have so many little clubs and associations. I said, yes, I'll be, in the faculty here, I'll be in the staff here. And it's easy to just be so busy that you're taking your time away from your grades and your studying. And, it's very easy to go down that hole because you want to keep adding to your resume. But really just focus on the extracurricular clubs or activities that you think will help make you a better provider one day. If it's something that is going to be temporary, a 2-month thing, might as well just focus on your studies and get better grades during that time, okay? And don't burn out. That's an important thing because I personally worked with people that have committed suicide from burnout. It's a real thing. Take care of yourselves during this time. It's very cutthroat going to university, going to dental school, going to medical school, getting a PhD. Like, you're going to have people around you that always want to be better, but you have to take care of yourself because otherwise your work is going to be compromised, okay? Some things that I learned in medical school. So study groups are super important. So when you're studying like dense material, you study on your own, but the importance of consolidating information is through repetition. So if you look at a page like for 5 hours straight, that information isn't just going to self-absorb. If you talk about it, teach it to somebody else, hear it from somebody else, that's going to get you that A on your exam because you're hearing it constantly from different people, Try it maybe for one of your exams and see if you notice a difference, and then just keep doing it if it works for you. So that's the main gist of this slide. These are some main points that can help you for years down the line. These are some pictures just as a little break. So the left is of me working recently. It's one of my last few days of residency in the COVID unit. And this was a really interesting time for me because for like 7 weeks straight, I was in the emergency room and ICU during when COVID first broke out. I only had 1 hour a day with my loved ones. It was so difficult, guys, like probably the most difficult part of medicine for me, but it was worth it. We're taking part and investing in the future of medicine, which is an amazing place to be. And I wouldn't take it back for any moment. And then the right is of me on graduation day. I have probably less wrinkles in that picture and less gray hairs, but it's okay. Still worth it. Okay, so some information for applications, personal statements, exams. I know all of you guys have these regardless of which route you're taking. So these are important tips. For applications, never leave anything to the last minute. Like I have friends, our application is called ERAS, and they are prepared a month in advance with everything because God forbid there's a glitch in the system, which there have been for a lot of people. You have it, you're set, it looks better because the programs see your report before a bunch of other people. So always be ready like a few months in advance, okay? For personal statements, if you have a brother, sister, your mom and dad around, have them read it. Have them give their opinion, because you don't know the person reading it is not, they don't want like dense information. It's going to be like, you know, as if you're reading a novel. You kind of want it to flow. You want it to hold on to it and not be able to put it down. That's what a personal statement should be, like short, to the point, but enough to tell a bit about yourself, kind of in a little excerpt. If you want to email me, I'm happy to help you out with your personal statements too, because it's something that is really special and it can help determine whether you are put in the right pile or the wrong pile. Okay? And then don't just give them a generic personal statement. I know you guys have probably heard this a lot, but saying you're getting into a field to help people and make a difference, and you like working with the underserved population, all of those have been used and used and used, and it's something that is special, but they want a little more for you to be able to stand out. Times have gotten a little tougher in terms of competition. So some extra pointers, okay? For exams, so like I had mentioned, studying for my exams, actually it was a process. So for the MCAT, I tested maybe 3 companies before I found the one I loved. And it, you know, trial and error, like I was telling you guys earlier. My company that I worked for was called Swartwood. It's actually near UCLA, and it's very straightforward. You know, they don't bog you down with a zillion details. It helps you think the right way, which is so important here. When I wrote learn smart, not necessarily more, because your brain can only take so much, guys. I promise you. If you efficiently learn your information, you will score much better because you're not going to feel overwhelmed. And with overwhelming information comes test anxiety. So, you know, that's a down sloping cascade. I don't want you guys to go down that way. I want you to excel. So avoid, you know, anything that can induce that. If you want to, you know, go away for a little bit, I had some friends rent out Airbnbs and just study in an Airbnb for a month. You know, 0 distractions, and they did really well. For me, you know, I made sure to balance my time. I worked out for an hour in the day, and then I studied a little bit on my own. I did a study group for an hour, and that was my day, you know, and I did just fine. So you have to find what works for you. But I think that there are so many options out there, and if you need help with exam preparation, I can help you as well. Okay. As far as things to expect, social skills and interview tips. So this is a great topic. When you're at the point in your life where you're going to have to be there in person and interviewing with people, they're going to look at a few things that they don't talk to you about, okay? For example, when I was interviewing, I had maybe 10 other people there with me, and they check to see how you act with those 10 other people. So if you're kind of on your own, like, you know, you don't want to interact with anybody, you're focusing on your own stuff, that doesn't look good to them. They want to see if you're a good team player. Are you able to socialize and work well with the people around you? That's a skill that will carry you anywhere in life, okay? So they notice things like that. Another thing is, don't always think they're going to ask you bread and butter questions. They're going to ask you why you're interested in their program, why you want to go down to that field, but they can also ask you to tell them a funny joke. They can also ask you to talk about your weaknesses, talk about what are your fears in life, talk about what you wish you would have done 5 years ago, things that maybe, you know, you have to think for a second to answer. They want to catch you off guard, and this happens in almost every interview. So it's very important to kind of prepare yourself for that, okay? I hope this is helpful, by the way. Okay, good. And then mindfulness and professionalism, a lot of this is kind of intuitive. You have to look professional, be timely. And I always send thank you emails to all my interviewers, even the secretary and the coordinator and the person who helped you. that looks really good because a lot of people don't pay as much attention to them. But if you do that, then your name is going to stand out a little more. Okay. And then how do you prepare for the real world? So this is a question that has a lot of answers because everyone's real world is a little different, right? So our cultures, our life circumstances, some of us are married, some of us have kids. It's so unique to our capacities. But I think, like I had mentioned, focusing on whatever you're capable of doing at that time, depending on your financial ability and your time, your commute, all of those things, make sure it reflects your personal nature and what environment you can thrive in. If you're working in a setting where you lose track of time and you look at the clock and you're like, wow, it's already 5, that's probably an ideal place for you because you don't even notice the time is going by, you know, and you're just enjoying what you do. Whereas if you're counting the minutes down and you're like, oh, I can't wait to go home, and you know, you don't work well with the people around you, then maybe you should reconsider that route and see what else is out there. Another important thing is being confident. So as much as sometimes at this point in our lives, it's easy to be compliant and submissive and, you know, make sure that the people around us are happy since you guys are still students. It's also important to be assertive and act like you know what you're talking about, because especially for a job recruiter or somebody that wants you in their team, they want to make sure you know what you're talking about. And it's a very attractive quality to your colleagues, your patients, whoever you take care of, and also the people working with you. Okay. Communication, adaptability, those are very important skills. Weaknesses. So sometimes we don't like to think about this. I, for a long time, didn't like to think about this because for me, it was kind of like, it was something that I was afraid to think about, what weaknesses I had. I like to focus more on my strengths and try to play those up. But weaknesses are important because if you do focus on them, that's your only way of getting stronger. I'll tell you about one of my weaknesses, and not many people know about this, but the reason why I'm a doctor is because I was a patient first. I had anorexia when I was 14. So I was hospitalized for 8 months, very sick, like 60 pounds. I'm blessed to be alive. But that's why I became a doctor. And I bring up that weakness a lot now because I'm proud of it. And it's something that makes me a better doctor, I think, because I can relate to my patients more. So sometimes your weaknesses can help you in the long run. You just kind of have to think outside the box a little. Okay. And then some other points I wanted to mention. So I love the pre-med office at USC. I still keep in touch with them actually to say hi. They were extremely helpful for me. I know that there's probably other advisory offices. Please take advantage of them. I think they were free when I was there. And they help give you so many options and help give you like timelines and plans of how to help arrange, you know, the next year, the next 2 years, whatever you need to help guide you. Okay. And then the last point I had on here was about extracurricular activities. Sorry, did I do something wrong? No, I'm not the best with technology, sorry. Like extracurricular activities that you do, those are extremely important because they come up during interviews too. And I like doing archery, for example, like shooting bows and arrows for fun. And that came up during one of my interviews, and one of my interviewers, he actually did it too. So he was asking about my technique and where I like to do it. And it's nice because you get to connect and they'll remember you, you know, it's something special. So don't err away from that. Keep doing what you love on the side. Sorry, my throat is a little dry. So I've given you my contact information on here just in case you want to reach me about any questions about applications, personal statement, interview advice, anything whatsoever. I'm happy to help you guys out because I was in your shoes maybe like 6 years ago. So it's something that I want to give back. And then I'm gonna leave the session open for any questions you guys have now for me as well.
Hi, I have a quick question. My question is in terms of the MCAT and during your master's program. So how were you studying for that while you were taking your master's, or were you studying during that time?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was studying because I think I took my test in the beginning to mid time of my master's, and then towards like the closer to the end, I started working by teaching. So basically, after I got my score, I was able to balance doing my master's and taking the classes as well. And Danielle, honestly, now because everything is electronic, you I think would have an even better chance to be able to balance that out because you can do your lectures electronically, and then like the class that was offered for me, his classes are electronic now too. So it's flexible with your time.
Okay, and then can you remind me of what the you said it was it Switch or what was it?
The one I taught for was called Swartwood. It's SWARTWOOD. He's had many successful people go through his class. So many ended up in Ivy Leagues at UCLA, USC, all over.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
I've got a question. So one thing I'm curious about, I always have this vision in my head that like, okay, I make it to the interview process and then they do MMI and then I freeze up and I don't know how to answer well, and then that's it. It's done for me. I got an MMI book to get to know the process a little bit more, but is there something that you did that made you feel more comfortable for it, or did you just go into it kind of trusting yourself? How did you go about that?
Great question, Jessica. So by MMI, you mean multiple applicants in one room? Okay. Just so everybody else knows what you're talking about too, okay? So with that, yeah, that's tough. I've done a couple MMI sessions. It's tough because you don't feel like it's as much about you. Everyone else kind of gets their limelight too. So I feel like one piece of advice I have to give is trying to do individual interviews before you do an MMI, so you get comfortable with the art of an interview and then transition to that. Because if you start with an MMI, it's really overwhelming because it's not your default interview. I think once you go through your regular interview, you have all your answers in your head. Do it hypothetically with people around you, your family, just so you practice, and keep that vision in your mind. So even if you have 8 people around you answering questions, you still have your answers. You don't get swayed by what they're saying, okay? It goes back to not feeling the competition. They know that in that setting, some people are gonna, be competitive and hear what they're saying and want to be better. If you just stick to your ground, that will make you look much better, even regardless of how many people are around you, okay? But it is a little more intimidating. I hope that helped.
Looks like we lost her. She said she was having trouble with connection, but I'm going to stop share if that's okay.
Okay, perfect. That way we can just talk if we need to talk.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions for Natalie?
I know we finished the presentation a little early, so we have extra time for questions.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I'm in my last year at USC. I just took the MCAT pretty recently, and I'm planning on taking a gap year, but I have no idea what I'm
Oh
gonna do
my
for
God,
that year.
I'm so glad
So
you asked. Awesome. What kind of things are, congrats by the way on finishing
thank
the
you.
MCAT. I've heard it's changed a lot since I taught for it at least.
Yeah, I had to take like a shorter version of it because of COVID, but
Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're done. Some advice for gap years, because I had one. Um, I traveled to Armenia, which is one of my ethnicities, and I went there and I taught gerontology there. So I speak Armenian too. So I used my master's degree to have the opportunity to teach there. And that really worked out. It really stood out on my application. Plus I got to travel. Like, I don't know if you like to travel. I don't know how much you can do it now, but um, but even like any opportunity where you can teach really stands out, especially if you're considering a faculty position in the future. It's something that will show your advisors that, you have that ability early on. Um, so since you're going into medicine as a senior resident, you're always going to have to teach. So it's a good kind of template for you to do that too. Research is another thing you can consider, um, especially if you're going into like a more competitive field. Research is something that always looks good. If you have a publication, if get your foot in the door in conferences. I liked getting my foot in the door at ACP, which is um, primarily internal medicine physicians. And so now they want me on their board of governors because I started with them as a student. So they notice, you know what I mean? So it's something that I valued, and it pays off in the end. So you can do research, you can do teaching, you can do a lot of clinical work, you can be a scribe. I didn't do scribe work because I figured I would learn that later, in med school, in residency. It just wasn't for me. Some people like it because they get exposure to the setting and the terminology, but I figured eventually I would learn that stuff anyway, so I didn't want to waste my time. But
Thank you.
of course, that's my personal opinion, but email me if you have any trouble. I can help set something up for you, okay?
I guess as a follow-up to that question, because you spent a lot of your gap year abroad, was it hard balancing that with like traveling for interviews and stuff during
Um,
that time?
that's a good question. I spent traveling maybe like 4 months, and the rest of the time I spent for interviews. So I
Got it.
scheduled it in a way where I could do both.
Cool. Thank you.
Of course.
I want to say real quick, I'm so sorry. My laptop just died on me,
Oh.
but that was helpful. I'm so sorry.
You're so sweet. No worries. That's what I expected. Don't even worry. I hope it helped you.
It did. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
My question is more of what gives you your confidence? Did the degree give you your confidence? Did the people you work with, does your family give you your confidence? Where do you get that? And also, it's a very intimidating field that you're in, and I want to know, like, how do you forgive yourself for not knowing everything?
My gosh, Giovanna, excellent golden questions, both of them. Okay. Confidence, I've always had trouble with self-esteem and confidence. And with work, it's one thing that I can tell you I am the most confident in right now, like as a provider. And that's experience, nothing more than that, to be honest, because I never erred away from situations. Like I worked in free clinics in New York City. I like helped people that were extremely poor. I have helped the rich. I've never said no to an opportunity that I know will help me. And that makes you confident because you're like, hey, I did this 4 years ago. Maybe I can do it again. It builds your personality. And then my family was supportive. That definitely helps. But my family doesn't come from a family in medicine. So some people might have family members as physicians, but I didn't. So for me, it was kind of like a clean slate. And yeah, I think I built my own confidence for the most part. So yeah, it's something that it's your relationship with your patients. And if my patients put trust in me, that makes me more confident. It works like that magically. Yeah.
Beautiful answer.
um,
Thank you so much.
huh?
I said that was such a beautiful answer.
Oh, thank you. I mean that though. It's really true. Remind me of your second question, Giovanna. Sorry.
Oh, sometimes, okay, so I'm going to graduate with my master's in Gero, and as I get ready for the real world and I go out and I try to apply for jobs, I sometimes feel like I don't know everything and I don't know how to sell myself because I don't have that experience. And a lot of us millennials can, relate to that feeling. So not knowing everything, but being able to say, I still have so much to offer and I still can bring this to the table. How do you balance that? But then also in your field, more medical, when you don't know what to do, you don't know what to say, how do you channel that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, saying I don't know, there's nothing wrong with that. I've made mistakes, and I'll tell you one of my mistakes that I've made in residency. I've made two, and one of them was very minor, but this one I'll tell you guys about because it was as an intern. It was my first year, and it really affected me because I did a presentation on US healthcare expenditure. I love healthcare policy. So I did a presentation on how much we spend on healthcare, and it's a lot, guys, okay? And I accidentally ordered a medicine that it was overkill. Like the patient didn't need it, but it was one dose. And that one dose cost $30,000, guys. One dose. And as an intern, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I did a presentation on how much we spend and I ordered that. How did I do that? And my attending, like who I was working with, told me, she's like, she laughed and she's like, you're going to learn from this. She's like, I'm glad you care about this topic. But she's like, now you'll never do it again, right? I was like, no, never. But like, you don't try to play it down or be defensive. You learn from it. And I'm sharing this with you guys because I did learn from it. And I'm very mindful on what I order and how I order it. And sometimes less is more, especially with the older people. Like, they don't want to be on a bazillion medications. They want to be comfortable and happy and have a good quality of life. So, you kind of have to follow your instincts. And if you truly don't know something, it's fine to ask people for help. You can still seem like you know what you're doing. And honestly, you'll probably be better at what you're doing by asking a professional about it. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah, of course. You guys are learning some things about me that I don't share with a lot of people, okay?
I was going to say, you sound like such a great provider because of your experiences, because of what you've been through and how you've managed to overcome them. That's like, now I feel like a person that's interviewing you and I'm like, wow, I would love to hire you because you've done so much and it's helped you and it's been the catalyst to get you where you are today, which is great.
Thank you, my dear. It was fun. Like, I had such a great experience with the Andrews School too, because I remember when I was doing my practicum, like I lived in a nursing home for a little bit just to get the experience. I don't know if you guys still have that opportunity, but it's an amazing opportunity. You get to really work directly with older adults and see, their day-to-day, the problems they go through, and learn from them. It's special. I think if you, especially during these years where people just know that you're learning and in training, take any opportunity you can that comes your way, because it will fly by. It will seriously fly by. Another thing I want to mention is never lose touch of your humanity. Always be humble, always be modest. Try your best to, like, one of my favorite quotes is, character is who you are when nobody's looking. Don't just be a certain way because you think someone's watching you or going to give you a point for something. Be good. Like, be a good human being. It takes you a long way. longer way in life than to just, you know, be there and one up somebody and be competitive. I promise you they notice that. Sorry, this is more of like a life talk, but I promise you it's going to be helpful, okay?
No, it's difficult because some doctors that I've encountered, they're like they're senior doctors. They've been in the game for so long. So it's nice to hear someone fresh out of residency and has so much heart to bring to the field and to the people that they're serving. And I love that you did Gero. That's so amazing. It's nice to hear someone cares about the older people. Do you find in the field that other people do, or do you sometimes experience a lot of backlash against the older people, especially at this time?
That's a good question. I do experience quite a bit of backlash, actually, Giovanna. Not, you know, the area I worked in is actually a blue zone. So Loma Linda has, it has a lot of people living over the age of 100, which is great. It's one of the only ones in the US. And so it was nice to see that there. But unfortunately, a lot of the sites, they generalize, and polypharmacy is a big problem. And people neglect it. So many hospital admissions are because people neglect people's home situation, safety situation, neglect, abuse. I've seen it all. And it's so unfortunate. Like when I traveled to Italy and Japan, the way they treat their older adult population there is so unique compared to here. So those are one example, but I'm sure you've been to some other countries too. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah, okay, perfect. So from what I'm understanding, everyone is kind of either just starting, or you're in the phase where you're transitioning to a master's, or kind of waiting in between phases after exams. So it's a little different for everybody I'm talking to, but I'm hoping that today at least one point was helpful moving ahead as you think about the future.
Absolutely. We have about 15 minutes left. If you guys have any questions, if not, we can get out of here sooner. We will have this recorded so that people who weren't able to make it can come and watch it again. But yeah, Danielle said all your points were helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And anyone have any last comments? And she's on LinkedIn too, if you want to connect with her.
Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, and then honestly, I'm not just saying that, open communication. I am very quick with my emails. So if things do come up and it's a personal issue, happy to help you with it.
You are so kind. I kind of want to know, because I'm not medically inclined, I'm more social behavioral, but what is internal medicine to someone who doesn't really know what that means?
Oh, for sure. So internal medicine is just general medicine for adults 18 and over. So it covers essentially all medical problems. It could be either inpatient or outpatient. And we cover both acute and chronic medicine. So yeah, it's really great. It's gratifying for me because, I like to establish long-term relationships with people. And I love that you deal with social behavioral health, because I take that into consideration so much when I take care of my patients, like, what culture they come from, and like what their socioeconomic status is, and things like that matter. They matter. You treat the patient, not the disease. So it really matters. Yeah.
Goodness. Well, I just want to conclude with saying congratulations on your huge accomplishment.
Thank you so much, guys. It was such a pleasure meeting each and every one of you. You all have a lot of potential. Don't let anybody else make you think otherwise. And I'm so happy to continue to connect with you.
Yes. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, I think this was a great first speaker series. So super glad to have you here as our guest, Natalie. I guess I'm going to let everyone go because I'm pretty sure that everyone's just as busy.
Yeah,
So,
sounds good, Giovanna. If you want me to come back in the future, if you guys have an interest, I'm gonna start working again in a month to a couple months. But just shoot me an email, and I'm happy to rejoin you back, maybe in person next time, hopefully.
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Jessica Haddad just started a club called Medical Gerontology. So perhaps her students who are in that club will be highly interested in hearing from you because you have such great insights.
Perfect.
So, yay!
100%. I'll be reaching out to you soon.
Perfect, Jessica. I'll be there. No worries.
And I will be regarding blue zones because I really, really am interested in dementia and blue zones.
Awesome. I am too. So I'm looking forward to it, Giovanna. Thank you.
Yay. Okay, ladies. Have a great evening, all of you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Gigi, for this event.
You're welcome, guys. It was my pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.